Hey everyone, it's Tracy at Whirls and Swirls Quilting, and today we're going to work through the gray area of this quilt doing a freehand feather filled with bubbles all around it and some echo quilting. First we're going to start with a nice soft curl. We're going to pop a feather right on the outside of that and bring it all the way back down. Now I'm going to work the feathers, and today I'm doing the traditional bump back feather or humpback, over the top, heirloom. It has many names. Basically we're going to bring the feather right from the spine up and over and then backtrack into the spine. So backtrack there, tuck it into the spine. Over the top, tuck it in. Over the top, tuck it in. Over the top, tuck it in. Now normally I would stay away a good half an inch from the edge of my quilt, but I'm not really worried if these feathers get cut off because it's meant to be more as an all over rather than an actual full-on motif. What the 1/4 inch echo does is it encases the design so that when we do these little bubbles as we go around, the feathers will still stand out and they won't get lost being surrounded by all these little circles. I prefer to do these in manual mode. I find them smoother. I'm going to add some cool stuff inside those little pebbles too to just make them a little more interesting. That way you can also make them a little bit bigger if you like, but your actual filler design stays fairly tight. It's just a little C-curl inside the circle, so come on in, swing around, curl, and back. Remember, you want to make sure that your pebbles, or any other filler really, that you vary the size. Some larger, some smaller. It just makes everything more interesting in the end. And it makes sure that it doesn't get stagnant. I'm going to go in and fill that little bit at the end there later. I'll go in from the side. So this little motif that I did when I started, I'd kind of like to do that in each section, but not necessarily in the same place. So I'm just going to work the bubbles until I get to a point where I think I'm going to like it, and then I'm going to pop it in. Maybe work my way kind of over to here. And we'll build this one this way. I really don't have a plan. Echo around in here just to take up some space. While I'm here, I'm going to fill this in with pebbles as well. And then I can always sneak through those pebbles and go back to my echo work in a second. Little ones, big ones. Right into there, and then continue to bounce with my echo. Nice and slow, take your time. Clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, no matter how you're doing it. It's always the same. Clockwise, counterclockwise. I know this seems like an awful lot of bubbles, but that's my plan. The bubbles, as long as we keep them at different sizes, add a little element to this one or that one, and sort of make them different, even though they're all the same technically, what's going to happen is the feather motifs are going to stay being the star of the show. If I start adding different elements in and different shapes, I'm concerned that it might take away from the actual feather motifs, and I don't want to do that. Alright, let's put another one in here. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I do have them going opposite ways. You know, one's curling down towards me, and then the next one's curling up away from me, and then this one is coming down towards me again, and I'll keep doing that. And as I work through the quilt, I'm going to make sure that they're all different. So in all the gray rows, the feather motifs will be going in this direction, and when I come back and do the same similar thing in the batik fabric, they're going to be going the opposite way. That's my plan anyways, that I have in my head. Who knows what's going to happen when I actually start doing those. I may change my mind. So stretch that feather out, pop it in, echo, gonna just go to there, and I'm gonna fill all this in while I'm here rather than coming back to it after. There's no sense doing the full echo around the whole feather and then having to get myself back up into this little area to get back out again. So we just take care of it while we're here, and then we can sneak our way back out to the feather that has the last echo and just sort of pick up where we left off. So we're going to bounce, 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 and then I'm going to bounce in here just because the space isn't really big enough for a bunch of pebbles. So if we just do 2 echoes or 3 echoes, then it fills in the space and it's similar enough, nobody's ever going to notice it later, and it gets us in and out without trying to do this little row of pebbles in a tiny, tiny space. So I'm just going to keep working. More pebbles and more pebbles. It becomes quite, what's the word? Almost meditative, really. You just keep doing them over and over and over again. You get into a little groove and you're just sort of in that sweet spot. I could do these forever. The other thing I wanted to mention, if you notice, I have not chalked any of these feather motifs out at all. Each one's a little bit different, So I haven't used, you know, a chalk pencil and a circle ruler or anything to get that perfect curl in there or to make them all exactly the same. I'm not really interested in them to be all exactly the same. I just want them to be whatever they turn out to be. If you are more comfortable putting in some chalk lines for these curls to make sure that, you know, you get them the size or the shape or going in the direction that you want, please feel free to do that. I tend to not mark at all or very, very little, and only if I feel like if I don't, I'm going to mess something up. You know what I mean? But when you see all these finished, you will notice that none of them are the same. But it all looks great when it's done. To me, it just adds more interest and, you know, just gives the eye more to look at and more things to notice. I like everything to be a little bit different. We don't want cookie cutter feathers, do we? They all have their individual personalities and little quirks, and I'm sure each one of my little feather motifs has, you know, one little one in there that's a little wonky, or one that's a little too fat, one's a little too skinny. Who cares? When it's all done, it's all going to look fabulous. Again, bounce like we did on that last feather, just to get out, because I got a little too close there. And more feathers. Or more bubbles, I mean. We've only got 2 to go. And then this row is done. This quilt is quite small. I'll probably hang it when I'm done. I do have double batting in here. I've got 2 layers of the Hobbs 80/20, and this happens to be the bleached. I didn't need to use the bleached, it's just what I had, and I find the bleached is just a little bit almost thicker. It feels a little bit thicker to me. I don't really think it is, but it just feels like it's got a little more muscle to it, if you know what I mean. And it just gives the most beautiful texture. You could double bat it with a layer of Hobbs 80/20 with a layer of wool on top, or a layer of, say, poly down, something like that. You could double bat it with 2 layers of 100% cotton. It really doesn't matter. The one thing you do want to remember, though, if you're going to hang a quilt that is double batted, you do want to make sure that you have a batting that's got structure on the bottom. So that would be either like the Hobbs 80/20, or if you're a warm and natural person, you could use warm and natural on the bottom, and then your loftier batting on the top. But you do need a batting with structure as your first layer, and that gives it the strength and the stiffness. Not that it's going to be stiff, but it gives it sort of the skeleton or the bones that will allow it to hang nice and straight and strong if you're going to hang it on a wall. If you were to just use, say, a layer of the wool or a couple of layers of the wool or the poly down or something, that batting's nice and fluffy, but it doesn't really have any structure per se, and the stuff just won't hang nicely, in my opinion. So I like to always have that Hobbs 80/20 on the bottom. And I've used all manner of different combinations, and they all give kind of the same thing. The loftier battings on the top will give you more texture than say the cotton, 2 layers of the cotton wool blend, or 2 layers of cotton, or 2 layers of poly cotton. Experiment and play. We're getting there. Bounce, 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 and then come back in and fill this little triangular shape just like we done before. We've only got one more, and it's only a partial anyways, so not really sure how I'm going to deal with that until I get there. But I'm sure it'll turn out just fine. All right. So sneak. It's a tight fit here. I came about a little too far out. Now I've got a couple of options. I can do a full curl when I get to this, or I could do a partial curl and let it look like it got cut off. You know what I mean? As if the triangle was a full triangle, and then the binding, sorry, will just kind of cut my feather motif in half. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when I get there. Are you getting tired of bubbles? I'm not getting tired of bubbles. I'm still going clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. Swing it into this last one and fill it in. Aren't feathers pretty? They're just beautiful. I don't know anybody who doesn't love feathers. There we go. And put one more here just to finish that curl. Or that, that curve. There we go. And then we'll echo to fill this in. And bounce out. Fill in this little triangular shape. Almost done. So again, the pebbles have, some are single, some are double, some have a little curl in them, some are larger, some are smaller. That really is the key. I mean, even though this is a whole row of pebbles, basically, with some feathers thrown in, it still looks really interesting because I've kept all the sizes a little bit different, added some elements to some and not to others, and it didn't sort of get stiff and structured looking. There we go. There we go. Ta-da! Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Look at that.